Welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint. I'm James Just. That's John Cameron. And we are here tonight to talk to you about peace in the Middle East, John. Do we actually have some form of peace in the Middle East this week? Is it going to hold for any length of time? Or relative peace, I suppose is a good word, because there's never really any peace in the Middle East. But a truce is in place. But you know, there's consequences to this truce, right? The rivals of Hamas are, shall we say, under attack by Hamas.
Shocker.
So they're cracking down on the rivals, which I suppose we're not surprised. But no. Where's the free Palestine? Where's the people who were complaining about the deaths in Gaza a week ago? Where are they now? I haven't heard a thing about them.
They can't complain about Hamas because they got to blame the Jews for something, and they can't talk about this. We based this one, folks, around a New York Times article, and you read it, and they're talking about the Hamas killing their rivals, and they make it sound like they need to do this because they're basically policing Gaza. Turns out policing means in Gaza, if it's Hamas, means killing off anybody who might present a threat to the power that Hamas has. So it's amazing how the New York Times spun that story to make people executing their rivals in the streets being policing.
Yeah, it's public executions is, you know, and pretty blatant. You're right there on YouTube. They live streamed the whole thing. So it was clear they were clearly sending a message to somebody beyond criminals. That's what was happening. And I think we run a danger when we exhaust our moral authority on a particular cause or group, and then we don't exercise that moral authority when that cause or group exercises immorality. And I think the people who have the Free Palestine crowd has lost their moral authority. Whatever moral authority they may or may not have had, they have completely lost it.
Yeah, they never had, because the day after Hamas attacked Israel and killed the equivalent of, it would have been 50,000 deaths based upon population, the equivalent here, and took the equivalent here would be 4,000 hostages if it was our population was the same. And the protests weren't against the people who did that; they were against Israel, and which strikes me as being, very strange. Now, Israel is not a perfect country, but the Israelis before they went into an area, it was hard to fight Hamas because Hamas spent all the money they should have spent on food and medicine digging tunnels. And they make sure they put all of their ammo dumps and headquarters under hospitals and schools. It was really hard to attack them without hurting civilians, and they designed it that way. And they would always broadcast text message out to everybody they could geofence and find, saying, "We're going to go after these guys here. Can you please run?" And Hamas would say, "No, you have to stay here." So. The idea that they're now executing their rivals in the streets being a shocker to people, I don't see how you can be shocked.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with people who've gone a pox on both their houses, a pox on Hamas, a pox on Israel. I have no problem with that. But I do kind of have a problem with people who are picking just the Palestinian side without any real understanding of the greater issue. Back literally thousands of years. This is not a fight that has happened in the 70 years since 54? Was it when the
56? Whenever
56?
It was. 52.
Yeah, it's
around the time I was born. Way before I was born.
This is an issue that has gone on thousands upon thousands of years. Yeah. The chance that this truce is going to hold for long term is slim to none. But we'll take what we can get as we can get it.
Well, I think it actually will, because I don't, Donald Trump, for all his faults, took a completely different approach, because everybody over the last 40 years has basically said, Israel has to appease the Muslim population in Gaza, and Israel needs to disarm, and Israel needs to roll over backwards and forgive and support and financially aid and all the rest of that. And Trump said, no, they don't. And he put pressure on Turkey and Qatar, whatever you call it, who are big funders. And there's, of course, Iran big funders, but the only way you can put pressure on them is to bomb them out of existence.
Well, that bombing of Iran, did you think that bombing of Iran was not just a signal about their nuclear program?
No, it was you need to do something to not foment terrorism around the rest of the world. So, it works and people are shocked, but you don't do big real estate deals that work in New York without having to know how to deal with the unions and the politicians and the mafia. And that's basically what in a twisted way Hamas is.
He does have an instinct for Trump, for all of his faults, and there is a laundry list of them. He does have an instinct for negotiations. It doesn't always work, but he does have an instinct for negotiation. John, we're going to move on.
Good.
We are talking about peace, and Mr. Richard Fields has something to say about the Nobel Peace Prize this week. So
won by a magnificent woman.
Yeah, let's see what Richard has to say this week.
I'd love to hear that.
Hi, this is Richard Fields with this week's Report from the Fields. My heartfelt congratulations go out to Maria Corina Machado Perisco for winning the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize. For 25 years, she's been involved in leading the peaceful democratic opposition to the socialist tyrants ruling Venezuela, both Hugo Chavez and his successor, Nicolas Maduro. She comes from a family steeped in Venezuela's history and cultural heritage. She's super smart with a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering and a master's degree in finance. She initially worked in the auto industry in Venezuela, but in 1992, when she was a young mother of 3 children, she changed her career. She founded Fundación Atenea, which focused on using private funding to help orphans and street children. Then in 2001, she founded Somati. Her goal was the promotion of sorely needed electoral transparency and democratic development. She led a recall referendum in 2004 to remove Hugo Chavez from office. The recall failed, and as a further result, she faced government charges of treason and conspiracy for accepting funding from the U.S. National Endowment for Democracy. The charges were eventually suspended in spite of the boot of the dictatorial Chavez government hovering over her neck. She ran for a seat in the National Assembly and won. During Chavez's State of the Union speech in 2011, she accused him of expropriations, which amounted to outright theft. After Chavez died and was replaced by Nicolas Maduro, she discussed Venezuelan protests at an Organization of American States forum. For that, she was ousted from the assembly. Her courage undaunted, she spent the 2010s hosting a radio show, Contigo con Maria Corina Machado, using it to support democratic reforms. In 2012, she founded a new political party, Vente Venezuela. The party advocated popular capitalism, human rights, same-sex marriage, cannabis legalization, privatization of state assets, an independent judiciary, and international sanctions against Maduro. Sounds pretty doctrinaire libertarian to me. She became the party's presidential candidate. Naturally, Maduro found bogus reasons to disqualify her from running. So her stand-in choice, Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia, ran and, according to independent observers, won by a landslide. Maduro declared himself the winner anyway. At that point, Machado began fearing for her life. She sent her children abroad. She stayed in Venezuela, but went into hiding. Arguably, there are now 2 libertarians who have legitimately defeated socialists at the polls in South America, Machado and Argentina's Javier Milei, who, unlike Machado, was not prevented from taking office. Both were able to win because they offered a plausible alternative to failing socialist policies. And given enough time, socialist policies always fail if the criteria is peace and prosperity for the citizenry. The same is true with nationalist fascist parties. They fail because they centralize control to the party or the dictator and remove it from the individuals affected. We may not quite be there yet in these United States, but under the leadership of both Trump and Biden, we're getting close. That's this week's Report from the Fields. I'm Richard Fields. See you again next week.
That's Richard.
All right. Thank you, Richard. You know, the Nobel Peace Prize, you know, it's lost some of its luster in the last number of years.
Since they gave Barack Obama one for being black and elected president.
Yeah, I mean, it had been losing its luster before that, but that was kind of the one that sent it off the table. He got a Nobel Peace Prize essentially for being elected, which is kind of nonsense.
And then,
but I mean, as we do say, this is
this one's well deserved. Well deserved.
Yeah, I mean, she's working in the fact is she sent her family out of the country and she stayed, right? How many of us would do that? If you're going to send your family out the country, I'm going with them, right? If it's so dangerous that I'm sending my family, I'm not sticking around either. So she's braver than me. And so I give her full tons of credit. She has earned every accolade she has gotten. It's my perspective on that.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Heroic woman. There's another heroic woman who was too young to run for president of one of those other South American countries, who basically travels the world speaking about libertarianism, wearing a Soviet fur hat, you know, just to point out.
So I forget her name.
Yeah.
Oh, what is?
Yeah, but she's a kick too.
She's a kick.
And she'll be president pretty soon. You know, if you get rid of these socialist dictators down there, South America will be an example for the U.S. pretty quick.
Yeah, so we're actually talking about that. Let's go move on. Argentina, the United States has decided to help Argentina with kind of a bridge loan, a $20 billion bridge loan, right?
Yeah.
I think
currency swap, basically.
Yeah, it's a very strange. The way it's set up is very strange. So theoretically, it shouldn't, in the long term, it shouldn't cost the U.S. taxpayers any money. If in the next couple of years Malay's turnaround actually works as it should,
it has so far,
then we'll benefit from it. But I do understand the complaints. Let's be clear. We do understand the complaints. But at the same side, Malay did not destroy his economy. The economy was destroyed when he walked in, and so he was very clear. It's going to take some time. There's going to be some pain. This is not an immediate solution. And so
agreed.
So the notion that they're putting it as he's kind of destroyed his economy is a wrong way to point this out.
And you know, the people that are protesting, yes, they're feeling pain. These are all the Peronists who are out of jobs and out of power, and you know, the people who had the unions and the government employees and all the rest of that benefited while everybody else in the country suffered. Now, other people are suffering as well, poor people, and those people. And if you set a country up to fail repeatedly, there's going to be some pain fixing it. But one of the America First people say, no, we shouldn't be spending money propping anybody's government up. But they're also talking about the war that we're in with China, because we're in a war with China right now. It's not a declared war. And what China has done is cornered the market on all these so-called rare earths. And Argentina is sitting on not only an amazing amount of oil and natural gas, but also sitting on top of huge lithium deposits. And there are other countries in South America that are also sitting on huge deposits. It's not just China that has access to it. We're sitting on huge deposits that some of our archaic environmental laws are keeping us from accessing. So they're not earth and they're not rare. It's just that we've allowed and supported, I think, China having a monopoly on this. And I'm not going to call out just the Democratic Party and say they were in cahoots with China, but you had to know this was going to happen, because China's been very straightforward in what they're trying to accomplish, lending money to all these third world countries so they own the ports and they own the refineries and they own access to the minerals and all the rest of that. And if you let that go on for 50 years, it turns out that now they have power over us because of that. Or we need to spend some money to buy it back. Basically, that's what we're doing. In my opinion, it's a pretty straightforward transaction. We'll prop up your country until your country's going fine, and then we'll have access to some stuff that the Chinese communists won't let us have. So I think it's a pretty good bargain when you look at it that way. And unless the Peronists get back in power and ruin the country again, in another 50 years, Argentina's going to be lending us money. Maybe another 5 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? They had what, 75 years, 100 years? I forget how long, to destroy the country, and he's supposed to fix it in a year and a half, right?
Well, he's fixed a lot of it.
Yes, he set it on the proper path.
It's been a painful fix.
Yes.
And, hopefully people will hang in with him a little bit more. And there's already lots and lots of foreign investment. Their public debts is going to be investment grade in another couple of years. There's lots of libertarian folks moving down there, lots of digital nomads and all the rest of that, bringing capital with them. So let's keep our fingers crossed. And if he needs $20 billion as a pittance.
Yeah, but let's be clear. I understand the complaints.
Oh no, I get the complaint too.
I understand the complaints, and there's some validity to the argument. Yeah. But Trump isn't a libertarian, so Trump doesn't have to live by our standards. But I am skeptical of our investment. I don't want to be spending $20 billion that we're borrowing, because remember, it's not $20 billion we have saved in the bank. It's $20 billion we're borrowing.
No, I have a bank.
I'm still skeptical.
No bank exists.
I am still skeptical of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on. Belgium is on a national strike again, and it's had a big impact on the public transport. I mean, all kinds of public transport,
buses, trains, airports, ships,
the whole 9 yards. And let's be clear, Belgium gets their public transport has strikes routinely. I was just talking to a member of our crew tonight about that. She was there a couple of years ago and got caught up in strikes and had to take had to get to
Donkey.
work. They actually told her to make sure you take your laptop home every night.
Yeah.
Because you never know if you can get back to work the next day, because a strike might happen. And
and this is about public largesse. These unions are upset that the Belgian government wants to enforce having people retire at a later age, and they want to roll that back so they can retire earlier. They're trying to take back some of the money they've given away on public pensions and some of the wages they've given away and all the rest of that, and basically tighten the belt. And people don't want the belt tightened.
There's a danger here that I want to point out. This is the danger when you create a society that's dependent on public transport, and you've got a problem when the people who run public transport want to use that as leverage to get more out of the system than they should really have. And so there's a big danger when you create the society that's so dependent on buses.
Kind of like us dependent on public schools to educate our children, and the teachers go out on strike and we give them money we don't have.
Yeah, it's
kind of an analogy there.
There's a lot of analogies there, John. All right, so we're going to move on again. New Mexico, John, is providing free childcare for all. Is free childcare for all. Yeah. And we give free education for all, and how well has that worked? Why are we giving our children to the government even earlier and even longer when they have a proven track record of not being able to deal with this properly?
Well,
they cannot raise...
Like Head Start and all the rest of those things, they're complaining about it. They talk about the money that's spent in foreign countries. Do this in Denmark, and people in Denmark pay 70% of their wages in taxes. And that we use as one of our sources an article from The Nation, which is so far left that Mao Zedong looks like a conservative compared to The Nation. And nowhere in the article did it talk about how any of this is going to get paid for. And they talked about the wonderful benefits and having professional people taking care of children, and how that takes the burden off families so that mothers can work, and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, but we know...
Nowhere does it talk about how people are going to pray for it. That's how they're going to pay for it. Except for in New Mexico, where they're going to pay for a lot of it from tax on oil and gas, which the left hates because they don't want oil and gas.
It's like when they here in California, they had a bunch of these children programs tied to tobacco taxes. And then they had all these kind of programs to get people off of tobacco. So the tobacco taxes were continually decreasing. So they didn't have any money for these programs that they had set up to be run off of the tobacco tax money. And it's the same kind of deal, right? They're going to downgrade, the use of oil.
I have a solution for that. Just start giving out free cigarettes in elementary school and get everybody hooked, and the revenue will go back up.
Don't give them ideas, John.
That's tongue in cheek, folks. I didn't say that. They're already doing that in this state by trying to prevent people from vaping. And all the studies have proved that vaping is 95% less harmful than smoking. So somebody in the government wants people to smoke, or they wouldn't be trying to stop vaping. But go on.
They want to stop you
That
from
was my
vaping,
rant.
John. They'll stop you from vaping, but they'll give you free needles.
Free what?
Free needles. The same people who want to stop you from vaping are the ones who want to give you free needles.
I think free needles is fine.
Free needles is fine, but so is vaping.
I would not only give people that are drug addicts free needles, I would give them free drugs. That way they don't have to sell their poor bodies, they don't have to break into your house, they don't have to live in excrement. They just get a maintenance dose every day, they show up somewhere, and some of these government officials that don't do anything ever except spend our money can monitor it, and if they don't like it, they can leave. And we'd have a lot less problems.
My point wasn't about the free needles, it was about the restrictions on vaping.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's crazy.
It doesn't make sense. GM, John, we're moving on. GM is going to take a $1.6 billion loss after the electric vehicle subsidy goes away. But really, it's not just a subsidy. Without subsidies, these EVs do not have a real market.
No,
I mean, if you've got to pay people $7,500 to buy a car, to spend money on to buy, there's something fundamentally wrong, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and there has been forever, because when you ask people what they want to buy, they say, I want to buy a hybrid, but they haven't been pushing hybrids, because hybrids, in most people's eyes, carbon dioxide is a bad thing, produce less carbon dioxide, but you have the freedom of a gasoline-powered car, yet you're polluting less, and that's what people wanted to buy. But the government decided, no, we're going to jump the Grand Canyon and go direct to electric cars, which are heinously expensive. People don't want to buy because they're heinously expensive even with the $7,500. There aren't enough charging stations. And oh, by the way, when it gets really hot in California and everybody turns on their air conditioning, because we've closed down all the nuclear plants and fossil fuel plants, we are asked not to charge your electrical vehicle.
And the dirty little secret here in California, your fast charger costs just as much as your gasoline.
Does it really?
Yeah, it really does.
No.
If you plug it in at home overnight, it costs less. But if you have to go use fast chargers, it's roughly the same as your gas.
Is it really?
All right, John, we're going to move on. I thought tariffs were bad, John. But on our next topic here, the EU is threatening Britain with devastating tariffs. I thought we decided that tariffs are always bad. So why is it okay for the EU to impose tariffs on the UK? I'm confused.
Well, it's because the EU is basically wants Britain back, and they're extorting Britain by reneging on all the agreements that they already made with Britain about Brexit. And Starmer, who loves the EU, wants to be back and part of it, even though the British public said, no, we don't want to be part of commie Europe. And so he's letting them do that. And he's a wimp. So,
but that's the thing. These are the same people who've been telling us how bad tariffs are, right?
Well, not when they impose them.
Okay,
They're bad when other people do.
Let me get this straight. So Trump tariffs are bad.
Yeah.
EU tariffs are good.
Yeah.
And all the tariffs that existed, the tariff nonsense that happened before Trump are good. So it's just the Trump tariffs that are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's be clear here. The Trump tariffs are bad and stupid, right? Trade wars are dumb.
Well,
but
in this case, 7% of British trade is with, or UK trade is with the US. 70% of it is with Europe. So Trump could tariff the heck out of England and have very little impact on their economy. But if EU does it, it could destroy the British economy. So basically it is, what's the word I'm looking for? Extortion.
Yeah, it's economic. It's warfare. The EU has just declared war on the
and that's why
on the UK.
once the Brits voted for Brexit, the mass of undocumented aliens on the UK went up by a factor of 10.
All right, John, we've got like a minute and a half to cover this last topic. Instability and whiplash over at the CDC as they slashed 1,300 jobs before hiring half of them back, which actually makes sense, right? You have to, the bureaucracy had to be flushed, and then you hire back the people who actually know how to do the job and who are willing to work. And that way you don't have to hire the lightweights and the dead weight and all those things, right? Is that
well,
kind
in
of
this
the plan?
case, you know, you can either go through this stuff with a microscope and figure it out and do it gently and intelligently, or you could do what they do, is just whack a bunch of people and, like you said, figure out which ones you really need. And I would challenge anybody here, if they're honest with themselves, look themselves in the mirror and they're honest, to deny this statement. Any government agency could randomly lose half of its workforce, and nobody except for the employees not showing up would ever notice. Half.
Probably.
Maybe even more.
Yeah.
Maybe even more.
Well, what is it? 10% do 90% of the work? Is it the 10%?
At least it's at least 80-20.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And so the trick is always going to be which half are you going to lose, right?
And then how do you define what they do as work? Because in many cases it's not work. You just get in other people's ways, and they get paid for it.
You're shifting paper. You're literally filling out paperwork.
You're making it harder for other people to make a living every day, and you're getting paid for it. So don't show up and make it easier.
But I think when you've got to fix the bureaucracy, I don't really have a problem with this kind of thing. Is done in private business all the time. You gut it, and then you replace back as what you need and not what you don't. And that's kind of it's relatively routine. It's just government workers aren't used to it. I think that is the biggest problem. All right, John, we are just about out of time. Thank you for being here. I want to thank the crew in there for working so hard. I know it's been challenging tonight. And thank you for watching us. Have a good night, and please remember to love everybody.
Especially those people who